welcome all as you are coming in. If you can see the screen, would like you to follow the directions. You can feel free to, if you're using your laptop, if you want to use your phone, to go to polev.com, enter CULIB, and respond to the activity that says, enter the first word or phrase that comes to mind when you hear the word library. So we'll get started in just another minute. We'll give a few more people a chance to respond to this poll question. Also, if you are done with the poll question, want to open up the chat and put in where you're logging in from, if you're on campus, or if you are on campus, where on campus, if you're off campus, where are you joining us from? I would love to hear that too. We have one person from Balchal. Welcome, Stephanie. Glad you could join us today. And Muse. Townhouse, exclamation point. That must be very exciting. Oh no, someone's quarantined in Brooklyn. Sorry to hear about that, Lauren. Glad you could join us today. Wow, someone from Shenzhen, China.
Amazing.
Right.
That's amazing.
I know, right? All right, so we have 53 participants. We've got 30 results on our poll here. Let's go ahead and see. This is, let's see if my guess is right. Oh, yes. All right, so we have some interesting responses. Big, filled, calm, building. Yes, the library is a building. But of course, the biggest response, which indicates the most number of responses, is books. And that you played right into my hand. That I kind of expected that would be the case. We often get that response. And one of the purposes of today's session is going to be to help you find those books, but then also to share with you the vast number of resources and services that will help you do library research, and not just in books. So we're going to show you a few other strategies for finding materials, whether they'd be books, journal articles, and whether they are in print, online, and electronic, and how to get those. So just a little logistics. So we do have a Q&A. We do also have a chat. If it is a question of anything that we're covering, probably best to put that in the Q&A. We do have a couple of additional staff here that will be going through that and answering questions as we're doing the presentation. So that should hopefully clear some things up. And other than that, I think we should go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody. My name is Chris Miller. I am one of the librarians at the Cornell University Library. I happen to work at the ILR Library, which is called the Catherwood Library. I've been there for about 13 years, and I am the ILR research librarian, which means that if you're unfamiliar with ILR, we're the school that is specializing in all aspects of the world of work. Marcia?
I'm Marcia Teichman, and I'm the Visual Resources Librarian in the Fine Arts Library, although I'm not there currently. I work mostly with the College of Architecture, Art, and Planning. And I've been at Cornell for about 9 years. And it's really exciting for me because this is the first time I'm teaching with Chris. And he's fun, and it's nice to be teaching with somebody who's so much fun. So hopefully we'll all have fun in this next hour.
Yeah. All right, raising everybody's expectations. Possibly unlikely, but you know, I mean, we'll make it as fun as a library session can
That's
be, I
it.
think. So.
And feel free, everybody, to type in, if you haven't been doing it yet, to type in questions in the Q&A. We have the chat and then the Q&A too, and those are being monitored by the staff members who are also here, Rihanna and Jeremy and Sean, who are all incredible.
Yes, very much thanks to them, and I'm very excited to be teaching with you, Marcia. This is exciting. It's hard to believe we've been here both together almost 10 years together, and never taught together. So
yeah.
All right. So do you want to tell them a little bit about our principles?
I definitely want to tell you about the principles. So just in general, and I wanted to actually touch on one thing that came up in the word cloud, and that's building as a library. I also think about libraries as buildings, but we have a couple of virtual libraries on site as well, with some space to work in. Jeremy works at a virtual library, actually. And so we have physical spaces and virtual spaces, but we have one unified catalog for all of the collections in all of the libraries. So it makes it easy to search across the collections in a pretty seamless way. Right, there's a physical space, but not a book collection. The books are either at the Annex or at URIS, some other places. We have some at Fine Arts that have to do with engineering. Open stacks in most libraries in normal times. That's something that I really appreciate about being at Cornell, is that anybody can come into almost any library. You don't need a card. You can use the computers. You can consult the resources. You can't necessarily take things out, but those resources are all available for you to use on the premises. And I think that that's really special. Intellectual freedom and privacy is of paramount importance. We keep no record of what you borrow, and we don't ask why you want to read something. And that I value that a lot in checking out books. And there's equitable use for everybody who's a Cornell community member. So these are all really important principles that I think you should know.
All right, so we're gonna now go back to you guys and see if you can guess. I mean, maybe, hopefully you know, but if not, guess the answers to some questions as we get you introduced to the collections and whatnot. So the first question is, what do you think is the annual acquisitions budget for the entire Cornell Library? In other words, how much do we spend buying stuff or buying access to stuff, to quote unquote stuff? So just going to give you a few seconds to return to the polev.com/CULIB and take some shots at answering that. We so far have one result. This is quite the, so this is something that I do in our live classes, and it's a little easier to do it that way. But again, everyone is doing what they can to shift things to online. Okay, well, maybe people aren't finding their way back to the poll. If you want, you can also, if it's too difficult to get to the polev.com/CULIB site, you can also put answers into the chat. What are your guesses?
It might be worth mentioning that I got this wrong.
All right, so we have one guess of 5 million, 18 million. Any other guesses? So we will say, all right, people are being a little bit shy today. That's okay. We're going to show the responses. Oh, we maybe had more responses than it was showing.
Yeah.
Not sure why that wasn't updating it. So There are 14% of you that were correct. There are, it's our acquisitions budget is around, and again, who knows in the coming time, but right now it's right around $25 million. And that, one of the reasons that we want to point that out is that people don't understand the vastness of the collections and the information that is available to them through the Cornell Library. And so we want to point out, we are already paying for access to this, and so we want to encourage you to learn how to find these, the items that you specifically need, because oftentimes we have it, we already have it, and we've purchased access to it, and we want you to use it. So, all right, we got another poll question here coming up. So about books. Finish this sentence. Books are, and maybe I will not rely on the total results. I know the total results are going up. All right. So give it just another 5 or 6 seconds here, and then we'll see what you guys think. Cause and solution, says Colin O'Hara. Let's see what everyone's thinking. The cause of and solution to all of life's problems. So I personally believe that's the right answer. I would also accept great, but utterly inconvenient, because a lot of times people are thinking about books as the physical books, and especially during this time, there are going to be additional processes that you have to go through to get physical books. But as I said, we spend so much money on access to information. We also have a great number of ebooks that are not inconvenient, that are able to be found and used 24/7. So that can bring us back to the books are the cause of and solution to all of life's problems, because those will not be inconvenient. And we're going to show you how to access those, the physical and electronic books. And finally, the last one, finish this sentence. Librarians are. All right, about 5 more seconds. And as you know, there are librarians leading this session, so I have a feeling that even if you think other things, you're going to be answering. The last one, let's see what the responses are. Yes. Knowledgeable, helpful experts that want to help you navigate an ocean of information. Still 17%, so almost 1/5 of you do believe that we are here merely to tell you to be quiet or to practice the most important lesson we learn in library school, which is the shh, which I can guarantee you I have never done, ever. And so I can reassure you that, yes, it is the fact that we are here. Every librarian, every library staff member that I know is dedicated to helping you find the right resource in the right, in the shortest amount of time possible, and the best resources to use. So if you take nothing else away from this, because we're not expecting that you're going to be expert library researchers at the end of this, understand that there are a large number of people here who are here to help you find what you need. And we'll also show you, in addition to doing the research, how to find help through the library staff. So thank you all. And Rihanna feels young and hip. Rihanna is young and hip. However, I personally am the antithesis of young and hip, and especially, I don't know if you can see, I'm not a flashy dresser. So moving on. So let's maybe, the library homepage is very easy to get to. It is where am I going here? It is just at library.cornell.edu. And you are seeing the library homepage now, right, Marcia? Yeah, okay. And so we want to point out a couple of places that you're going to want to be familiar with off of the library homepage in starting out to do your library research, and especially for this semester. Right up at the top here is going to be a place that's going to help you find out the status of different libraries and different services. Right now, most of the libraries are closed to walk-in traffic. Actually, I want to say all the libraries right now are closed to walk-in traffic. Some of them will be opening up on the first day of classes. The access for studying is going to be limited to a reservation seat system in some manner. We're still working out how that exactly is going to work. And then other services that we have are coming online in different formats and times. And so check that out and keep coming back to check it out. We'll talk a little bit about some of the different changes that are being made for this odd time. Another part of the library site you should be familiar with is this libraries and hours. So as I think Marcia said, we have 18 libraries on campus. This is your the way to navigate to find where those are, how to contact them, and even get to each of them has a website that specifies the resources and services that they are making available. And so depending on what your major is, what college you're in, there might be different different information that you would need to know about your specific area. So for instance, I am with the Industrial and Labor Relations Library. And so if you're looking for specific help with industrial and labor relations questions, then go to our website, or again, ask for help from a librarian or a library staff. And the best way to do that for us is by sending an email to this ilrref@cornell.edu email address. So that is, you can see the many different libraries that we have. Almost all of them, as I said, right now are closed, but that will likely be changing in the upcoming days and weeks. Another place that you should be familiar with off of the library homepage is this reserve system. So especially for first-year students or new students, I don't know if we have transfer students in this session as well, but especially for first-year students, if you're not familiar with what reserves are, they are materials that are placed usually behind a desk if they're in print for people to access. So it's something that we have maybe one copy of, but an entire class needs to read a certain reading. And so these will be put, a print copy of this will be put behind a desk, and then you'd have to go up and ask for it, and you'd get it for 2 hours. And most of those are going to be electronic. There are still some print reserves, and the way that you access those will be described in the course reserve record. So if you have a class and you want to see if there are reserves for it, they might not all be online yet. They're still being placed into the reserve system. So for instance, almost all of these are electronic access, as you can see. So it's just a matter of going in, typing in your course number, department and number, and finding the reserves for those, for that class. If there are physical reserves, it will say where those are being held and how to access those.
Can I interject for 1 second?
Yeah, please.
I think that physical reserves for the most part are going to be at URIS Library. Olin and URIS are the Humanities and Social Sciences libraries, and they're going to be available in the Willis room, in the main room, where you can take books down and you won't have to check them out at that point. There was also a really good question in the chat about, can you scan books or take pictures of books, textbooks that are available? And I think it's worth mentioning to everybody that, yeah, you can scan. I don't know the availability of the scanners, but if you wanted to take some pictures of the books, as long as it was under 10% of the book, it shouldn't be a problem.
I think they can actually scan any amount that they want. We're just only allowed to only scan 10% if we provide it. So yeah, so that's something you're going to be hearing about probably, and you might not be familiar with. This is one avenue for getting to those. Research, so we're going to be talking more about the research process. I will say, though, that an excellent source of getting started on research is our research guides. And so this is one way to get access to those. And then finally, going to talk about, so Ask a Librarian. As I said, there are many dedicated staff that are here and to help you navigate the resources and the services and help you do research. We are generally here for regular times, so that if you were to email me, I would get back to you at a certain time. But we also have a service that is a 24/7 chat service that is staffed by Cornell staff members, and you can use that, and Cornell staff monitor that 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Friday. So you would get a direct Cornell staff member during those times. And then if you logged in any of the other hours of the day or the week that aren't covered here, we have other librarians at other institutions covering those hours. So basically, as we get later in the night, we'll get people in California to cover some of those hours, or so on and so forth. So basically, anytime you need help, and they should have access to what resources we have here. So they can help you. I would recommend trying to stay with the Cornell staff times if you can, but know that it is something that we can, that you can get help 24 hours a day, 7 days a week through that chat service. So, yeah, let me see. Let's see where we are here. All right, so in order to get through the research process, we generally recommend that you do go about researching strategically. And so the first part of that is identifying key terms and phrases from your research question. Then if you're not familiar with the topic or the subject, you can find background information from reference sources like encyclopedias and handbooks. Then you're gonna often go to looking for books, so longer format pieces. So books can be a couple hundred pages long, and they're going to cover many different aspects of a topic, and so that's going to help you become familiar with what are the many different aspects of that topic. And then finally, you're going to then jump into the specialized literature like journal articles. Once you get to a more advanced stage in your academic career, you might be able to jump right into library journal article searching, because you'll have already understood all of the other pieces of how that topic breaks down. But generally, as you're getting started out, this is what we would recommend. Start at the trying to identify what are the key terms, find background information, find books, find articles. Every research process is different. And again, this is why I highly recommend talking to a librarian when you're getting started, and they can make recommendations for many of these, the steps, helping identify key terms, finding background information, and so on and so forth. Do want to just mention that research is iterative. Just because you say, here's my research question, that doesn't mean that there are going to be sources out there that relate directly to that and are right on that subject. So oftentimes you might get to a place where you say, okay, well, I've done all the steps in the research process and there's nothing there. Well, you're kind of at the beholden to what has been published before when you're doing library research. And so you might have to go out and broaden your research question. Other times you might have picked a research question, you go in and you say, oh my God, there is so much. There's no way that I can distill all of this down into whatever your assignment is, a 5-page paper, a 10-page paper, whatever. In that case, you might have to narrow down your search and make it more specific. So just understand that is a very iterative process. As you are in the first step, identifying keywords and phrases. If your research topic is the effect of climate change on human migration patterns, then just thinking of the major topics involved. So that would be climate change, human migration. Don't type in just like the effect of climate change on human migration patterns, because it's going to be looking for all of those words. You want to just be finding the ones that, like, if you find items that talk about climate change and talk about human migration, just by definition, it's probably going to be talking about how one of those affects the other. It might be that you have to think about it broadly, and you have to think, okay, maybe I need to be thinking about how human migration patterns are affecting climate change. So keep an open mind, and because we don't know which way that causal or correlational relationship is. So leave out connecting terms and avoid any terms that might be too specific or too descriptive, and keep an open mind. Like, I know I've had people come in to me, again, I work in the ILR library, and so we do a lot of labor, so unions and HR, so management, and I had someone come in and say, hey, I'd like to find all the information about why unions are bad, because they had already decided that they wanted to write that unions are bad. I said, okay, well, that's going to be a very biased search. Let's look at, the different aspects of labor unions, and then you can make the decision based on the literature, what is the correct way to respond to that research question. So don't be too specific or too descriptive, and try not to be biased. Again, you're here to learn, and so therefore try and keep an open mind. I believe. So there is one way to do a search, and that is, you'll see right on the main page, we have this very, beautiful box that looks like a Google search bar. It's like, oh, if I just put all my search terms into there, that will be the way to search. Basically what it does is it tries to be everything to everybody. And so I don't usually recommend starting there. I usually think, okay, going back to that research process, how do I want to use the items here to follow that research process? So for instance, if you were going to be looking for background information, there are things like dictionaries and encyclopedias that offer background information. And Marcia is going to show you how to access those. And I'm going to give you remote control access.
Thanks, Chris.
And
the questions coming, they're good questions.
Sorry. I'm doing the wrong thing. I'm just trying to raise the...
Perfect.
There we go. Make it a little bigger. Sorry.
That works great. One other thing I just wanted to show you about the search bar is that under services, say you do have specific research about specific research about a certain subject, you can go to library liaisons and find a subject specialist. So it might be worth it for everybody to just take a look and see who their subject specialist is. And it might not have your exact discipline, but it'll be something approximating it, like anthropology, American studies. Actually, this librarian isn't with us anymore. She's still alive, she just doesn't work here. So I'm not sure how we're distributing that work, but you can see that there are different librarians for different subjects. And here's me. I'm a subject specialist for art. And so just keep in mind that these are the people who you might want to get in touch with once you get started on your research and you want some more help. So we're going to go back to the main homepage of the library, just library.cornell.edu. And under the main search bar, there are numerous tabs, and one is for databases. I'm going to click on that. And if you look down here, you can browse by subject, and we're going to look at dictionaries and encyclopedias in a second. But much like the subject experts, the liaisons, you can find databases, these collections of information and aggregated sources from different journals in different places. The ones on art and architecture are here, history, music, education down here, geography, maps, and spatial data. So I can say for the art and architecture databases, I worked with a few other librarians on curating either the core sources, both the core resources and the other resources that might be useful to you. And there's a little bit of a scope note. There's information about the database as well. So just know that for every subject, or almost every subject, there isn't one for urban planning, for instance, just because there's so many subjects involved in urban planning. I'm the liaison to that department too. Anyway, those are the databases. But I'm going to go here to dictionaries and encyclopedias so we could talk about that second step in the research process of finding background information, some general information. Clicking on dictionaries and encyclopedias, and then the second result here is Gale Virtual Reference Library, and I'm going to click on this. Now, instead of searching for climate change and human migration, I'm just going to stick with climate change for this search, just to do a basic search for real background information. Whoops. So, climate change. And you get a host of sources, some that have to do with the environment, of course, some with psychology, some with ethics of the environment. And you can click on, I'm going to click on this bioethics results for climate change. And you get an entry here with some really, really great background information about climate change, the discovery of anthropogenic climate change, other scientific views, sources. You can see at the bottom, I went too fast. There's a bibliography. And one really great way to grow your search as you're doing searches is to look at the bibliographies and the titles of those other articles or other books and say, would this be useful to my research? Does this seem like something I'd like to read more about? And then you can expand your search that way. What's really great about dictionaries and encyclopedias is you can cite them in your bibliographies. With Wikipedia, I think a lot of faculty members really appreciate the sources that are given in Wikipedia, but not necessarily Wikipedia as a citation. But in something like Gale Reference Library, these sources have been vetted by experts. They're credible, what we call credible or reliable sources. And so they're information that's been researched and claimed by experts in the field. And so you can count on it for your research. So that's about all I'm going to say about dictionaries and encyclopedias. But if people have questions, if I move too fast, let me know in the chat or in the Q&A. I'm going to go back to the search box, the main search box at library.cornell.edu. And I'm going to use our search terms that we established in the PowerPoint for climate change, and human migration. And if you want subject terms to appear exactly as they are, like climate change together, you could put them in quotations, but that can limit your search. So thinking about the search tips that Chris has mentioned, don't necessarily put in words like or, and, or is. I use and still quite a bit, but we've just got the keywords of climate change and human migration. So I'm just gonna do a basic search in the search box. And you are going to get all kinds of results, from books to articles and full text. Chris is going to talk about articles in a little while. I'm just going to stick to books for now. And you can see both in the kinds of results, the material type, books, articles, and full text, there are different sort of funnels, different categories. And once you get into those categories, I'm clicking on view 244 books from the catalog. You can see that there are more facets down the sidebar. And these are really, really useful for narrowing your searches. At the library, there's 27 books. And online, you can see the separation between the physical and the virtual books, the ebooks. And that can be really useful. You can click on an ebook and see it right now, but the physical books, you'll either have to go to the library and request contactless pickup, or that's if it's available. So some of the books have a green check mark beside them, the physical books, and that book, say, is available at the law library. But maybe if we scroll down, we'll see one with a red clock. And that book at Uris Library is not available because it's been checked out. So you're going to want to look for the green checks and the little online books. We could just for a second look at only the online books by clicking on the facets. So this is why the facets can be really useful. I'll just click on those for now to see the online titles. And there's a couple of things about ebooks. We're relying on them more heavily since the pandemic started, and in certain disciplines, we're very, very print-centered, my disciplines being one of them. But there are a few things that you should know about ebooks. One is that there are only, for a lot of them, the way the licensing works is there are only a few seats available, unless we have unlimited access to a title. There's some titles that we have unlimited access to, but it depends on the situation with the publisher. So if the book could be checked out. So just keep that in mind. And you can either, depending on the publication, download a PDF of the chapter or the whole book. And we'll click on this one and see. This is a ProQuest one. I'm just clicking on the online icon. You can click on the title. Now this is interesting.
That's a thesis.
Oh, this is a thesis. I'm sorry. This is an e-commons, and theses could be useful too, as long as you're citing them as such or using their bibliographies. But I'm going to go to an ebook title instead. Climate environment hazards and migration in Bangladesh, and that is Rutledge. Okay, let's click on this one. So you can just connect to the full text. Now with some vendors, you're going to have to create an account in order to log in, and others you'll just be able to click on individual chapters or download the entire book. And so just keep that in mind. There's going to be sort of a different interface for every different kind of source. And with the physical books, I'm going to go back. And I'll click off online, but we'll keep the book format. At the library, with the physical book, what you're going to want to do is, if a book is available, you'll want to click on the title and go to request. Request item, this little red button, or you could request a scan of the article or chapter. And that will take a little bit longer, but that's a possibility. Another thing I wanted to mention that I tell in a lot of physical library sessions is that you can cite sources by just clicking book sources, by clicking on cite, and it'll give you the citation format in APA, Chicago, MLA, and I'm not great with citations, so this has been really, really useful to me. Another thing that I love that I'm going to mention, even though it's not super relevant right now, is that you can text yourself the call number. And this is super exciting because I also wrote down call numbers wrong. And then when you're going into the stacks, into the bookshelves and different libraries, you can just use that call number to pick up a book. So that's something I've really valued, and I hope that you'll be able to use at some point soon. So I think those are most of the things that I wanted to say about books. If people have questions, please put them in the chat. Should we talk about articles, Chris?
Sure. Actually, I'm going to jump right here. This is a perfect example. Did you mention requesting for the contactless pickup using the request item button?
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk a little more about that.
So yeah, so basically, since this is a physical book, it's at the law library. If you did want to get this copy of this book pulled off the shelf and and offered for contactless pickup, then you would say there are only 5 current places where contactless pickup of books is being offered, but you can select which one of those depending on where you are. If you're on North Campus, Africana is probably one of the closer ones.
That's right.
Or maybe Man, depending on where you are on North. But yeah, so this is, you'd select one of these, they would go to pull it off the shelf, and then they would let you know when that would be available, and you can go pick that up. The other thing, when you are doing any searches in whether that's for articles or books, we just showed you how to do keyword searches, but if you can find a book that has subject headings or an article that has subject headings, and you want to, because when you do a keyword search, what I say is it's just a dumb pattern matcher. It's just looking for where those string of letters show up. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's mostly about those subjects. But if you find something like this that says climate change, migration, and human rights, okay, well, that looks fairly on our topic of climate change and human migration. And then you can find something like emigration and immigration, environmental aspects. Any books that have that subject heading are probably going to be helpful. So now we have 28 that are on that subject. So climate refugees, life adrift, climate change and migration, climate change, migration, and homeland security. So always look for, so again, this is something that is a value add that the library catalog or the library databases will help with, is you find one good thing and go look what that item's subject headings are, and it will help you narrow down to just the ones that are of interest. So that is searching for books. In that research strategy that we mentioned before, the next step in that is, as you're getting more specialized, looking for journal articles. Marcia already mentioned wait, did you mention research guides? No, you were mentioning liaisons. You were mentioning liaisons. Okay, so one of the ways to find specific collections of articles is to often use the research guides that are put together by librarians. Oh no, you mentioned the list of all databases. So you can go to databases, and this is the list of all databases by subject. So again, if you're doing, if you're in art, you want to go up to the art and architecture. If you want to go to, like in my discipline, we have human resources, labor, and employment. And these are selections of databases that will be relevant for helping you find information, a lot of them for journal articles. So for instance, if you're looking at human resources, labor, and employment, one of the best ones that we have is called Business Source Complete. And This is a collection of around 2,000 scholarly business journals, and it's searched as well as some news sources, some business news sources, some trade publications and things like that, and will allow you to search among them. So if you are looking for instance, human resources and let's say employee motivation. Again, starting off with those very broad keywords, doing a search, and then it comes up with 7,700 articles. Similar to, again, understanding how the catalog works for the books will help you understand the journal article search. So just as there were limiters on the left-hand side there, also here, 7,700 articles. Probably take you too long to page through all of those. So let's see if we can't narrow that down to ones that are only more relevant to what you're looking for. So for instance, you have to think, am I really interested in how they were defining employee motivation in relation to HR in 1931? Probably not. So you could say, all right, only give me the last 10 years. All right, so now that's already taken us from 77 down to 3,000. You could say, I only want scholarly peer-reviewed journals because that is what a lot of the faculty members are going to want you to be using, is mostly just academic resources. So that takes us down another 1,000. At this point, you could look at different subject headings. You could look at different languages. If you don't speak Polish, you might not want to include the Polish. Maybe we just want, in this case, English. And now we're down to 1,700 articles. That's still a lot. At this point, I would say maybe think about adding more terms to make it more specific, finding specific subject headings. So again, here is an article that says HRM and small firm employee motivation. Maybe that's interesting to you. And if you come in here and look at the record, similar to that library catalog search, there are subject headings. And so you see there's an entire subject heading just on employee motivation. And if you click on that, it does that search. So now we say scholarly peer reviewed. And limit again. Wow, that is a lot. So now we only want to add, now say we want to add the idea of human resources as we had before. And now we're down to 607. So you can see that the ways that you are manipulating the different limiters and the different topics and keywords and subject headings will alter the number of results. The idea here, and in any research that you're doing, is that you want to use the tools that you have available to take out anything that you have no interest in, that is not applicable to what you need to find, and leave in everything that is on your topic. And that can take some practice. Again, that's the iterative nature of the process. Maybe human resources, maybe there's a descriptor for that too. And maybe you're only looking for how human resources consulting services are working with employee motivation. In that case, you could add the descriptor here, and then you can continue to manipulate that search. Once you've gotten it down to a decent number, then you want to go in and find the full text of the articles. There is also, in almost all databases, article databases, similar to what Marcia showed you in the book catalog, this cite link that allows you to cut and paste a citation, so you don't have to deal with trying to create that on your own. Other things, and oftentimes what you'll find is the full text. So PDF full text, for instance, here, and you know, of quite a few of these you're going to have immediate full text access to. However, the one thing that I always recommend against as in terms of limiters is this find full text articles only. If you come to a database that has that limiter, don't use it. And the reason for that is we have access to full text materials that aren't available through this particular database. And so if, for instance, you don't see the full text, so for instance, human resource management and the ability, motivation, and opportunity to continue working, if that is absolutely essential to your research, because it doesn't get the full text through this database, you wouldn't get the full text. It wouldn't even show up in your search. However, that doesn't mean that we don't have full text. We have this service that we've created called the Get It Cornell. So if you click on here, even though it wouldn't have shown up if you did the only full text, we actually do have the full text of it. You can download the PDF. We just didn't have it through that publisher. So that's why I say never use that full text limiter, because it will take out things that you still should, that we still have subscriptions to. Occasionally you will find through that Get It Cornell that there is something that we don't have. Not very often, for me at least. I think other people have different experiences with that, at least for our collections in these areas. And then at some point you'll be able to, hopefully in the coming weeks and months, our ability to request full text scans from other libraries will come back online, and then you really have access to just about anything published. Again, if you're having trouble doing the research in these databases or in getting access to any of the information that you find records for, but you can't find the full text for, again, that's another opportunity to reach out to your librarian, to the chat service. Someone will be able to work with you to see if we actually do have a way to get access to that information. So we are coming up on time. Did want to just talk a little bit about this thing called passkey. So Get It Cornell is one way to get full text if it's not immediately available. Another way is through this service called passkey. Yes, so under services, passkey. And what this does is, oh, that's library passkey. So that's if you're going through databases that you've come through the library website, which you should have access to just about anything, anywhere on campus or off campus if you're doing that. Passkey is if you're actually doing sort of like an open web search. Then if you take this passkey, at least in Chrome, there are instructions in other places. If you take passkey and drag it up into your bookmark bar, it will give you a thing that says passkey bookmarklet. And so if you go to, for instance, Google, and you're just wandering around Google, and you come across something that you think would be helpful. For instance, here is an article, and it says, give me $44 for this article. And you're like, wait a minute, maybe Cornell has this. If you've got that passkey bookmarklet up here, you can just click on that. It'll ask you for your NetID and password if you haven't logged in yet. I've already logged in. But I've clicked that, and now it says, oh no, here, have the PDF for free, because you actually Cornell already paid for it. Ta-da! So yeah. So there are many different ways to get access to the items that we have already purchased access to, and that is one of our more helpful apps that we've used. So in closing, let me see if this, nope, wrong one. So we went through all of these. We went through the searching for topics.
Ask the library to purchase something. You can ask the library to purchase anything.
Yeah, so even if we don't have it, you can make
right.
a purchase request.
Yeah, that should be under, is it under services?
Yes.
It's under services, under material requests, borrowing, interlibrary loan. If there's a book that you don't see in the catalog that you think we should have, and Rihanna's just put a purchase request link into the chat. Thank you, Rihanna. That's one of my favorite things about the library. The fact that you use passkey and click on something, and then the article appears without having to pay $40. You can ask them to buy a book, and they'll, for the most part, unless a book is very prohibitively expensive or unavailable, I can say we pretty much buy everything that people request in my field. So just keep that in mind, that we also rely on you to help us build our collections. So please put in your requests if you want something that we don't have. Yeah, and then there were a few things on the last slide that we went over.
Just wanted to summarize what we talked about.
Yeah.
Make sure you're checking back to the COVID-19 updates.
That blue bar on the top of the home page.
So, and then finally, just want you to know that there's so much more. This was a glossing over of some of the most basic tools and skills that you're going to need to be able to use, but there's so much more. We have rare and distinctive collections, which are our archives. We have copies of the Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment that were signed by Abraham Lincoln, as well as a copy of the Gettysburg Address written in Abraham Lincoln's own hand. Yeah, it's just amazing the length and the breadth and the depth of material that we have. It is not just books.
Yeah, we have so much. Maps too. The maps are really fantastic. The physical maps, and then we have a lot available online as well. And I just wanted to impress upon you that we all really, really want to help you. We care about you. We really feel invested in your academic success. And we just want to make your lives easier and save you time. So please reach out to us, to your individual liaisons or to me and Chris. And we're really, really happy to help you.
And I think that's it.
Yeah.
If I can stick around for a little bit, if there are other questions that you have or things you want to chat about. Otherwise, thank you all for coming. Please ask for help, and good luck in your time here at Cornell. Oh, and we should also put in a plug for the other library orientation event or events, companion.library.cornell.edu, including we're having a library, a pub quiz, a lib quiz on September 18th. So hopefully you will all join us for that. So is there a specialized library for each college?
I would say no.
Who doesn't?
Depends on the college. Like I think with Chris and I, we both work for unit libraries for some of the smaller libraries on campus. And my library is embedded. It's actually located in the College of Art, Architecture, and Urban Planning. But for a subject like English, you would probably use Olin and Uris as your
right. But I think that would be College of Arts and Sciences.
Yeah. I guess yeah.
So I mean, it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't break down exactly. But yes, there are often there is basically for whatever department you're in, there will be probably a primary library that you'll be using. So anything ag would or in CALS would be man library.
Stephanie, what are you studying? And I want us to answer Jason's question too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Cal's, your library is probably a
man. Yeah.
And it's a great library. And when there's physical study space, I like to go there and work sometimes myself.
Yeah. And Jason, I think you had a question about physical study space.
Brianna did answer.
Is that answered? Okay.
It's dependent on the library.
What's that? Yeah, it depends on the library and time. So if there's, I don't know.
Great questions.
Oh, I don't know if Pardis is still here, but after using the passkey, I usually am asked to log in anyways. Well, it should ask you to, if you use the passkey, it will ask you to log in, and then it will give you access if we have a subscription. So it's not to everything. It's just to those. It'll check to see if we have a subscription to it. So if it does ask you to log in after that, that just means we don't have a subscription. But again, the interlibrary loan service, I believe, will be ramping up soon. And so if it's something that we don't have, we can usually find someone who does, some library, and then ask them for a scan, and then we get that to you.